You wake up and you're a trillionaire. The first thing you do is sit on the edge of your bed and try to understand a number that has never meant anything to a human brain before. By the end of the week, you've bought a new house. Not a house exactly, a private estate, sitting inside its own forest, gates a mile from the front door, the kind of land that used to belong to entire villages. You walk through rooms you haven't decided how to use yet. A helicopter waits on a private pad because driving anywhere now feels almost inefficient, almost beneath the version of your life you've just stepped into. You hire a bodyguard team, not two people, not 10, thousands, an entire operation built around one goal, keeping you alive and untouched, a small army whose only purpose is orbiting a single human being. Full household staff move in, chefs, groundskeepers, assistants, managing assistants, people whose entire job is anticipating things you haven't asked for yet. Then the buying really begins. A fleet of cars appears in a garage built specifically to hold them, some driven once and never again. A yacht that functions less like a boat and more like a floating estate, a private island, because at this level, land itself becomes just another line item. Art collections assembled overnight by people whose entire job is knowing what's valuable before the rest of the world catches on. None of it feels like spending anymore. It feels like moving numbers from one column to another, because functionally, that's exactly what it is. Here's the part almost nobody explains properly. You're not actually getting poorer by spending any of this. You're barely making a dent. $1 trillion sitting in reasonably ordinary investments doesn't just sit there, it grows. Markets move overnight while you sleep, interest compounds while you're unconscious, and by the time you open your eyes the next morning, in a purely mathematical sense, you are very likely wealthier than you were the night before, whether you did anything at all or not. Think about what that actually means. You could spend more in a single day than most people see in a lifetime, and the number in your account might still be higher the following morning than it was before you spent it. Compounding at this scale doesn't just outpace spending. In most ordinary weeks, it doesn't even notice it. Your money is no longer something you manage. It's something that manages itself, growing quietly in the background of your life like weather, indifferent to whether you're paying attention or not. This should feel like winning. For a while, it does. And then there's the fame. You didn't ask to become the most recognized person on the planet, but $1 trillion doesn't stay quiet. Your name becomes a headline before you finish your morning coffee. Strangers recognize your face in places you've never been. Every purchase, every appearance, every offhand comment gets picked apart by people who've never met you and never will. You go from being a private person to being, in some strange sense, public property, a character other people feel entitled to have opinions about. Old classmates resurface, strangers claim distant connections, companies you've never heard of email offering partnerships you didn't request. Every message, every handshake, every warm smile carries a question underneath it that never used to exist before. Do they want to know you, or do they want what you now represent? This is where your brain runs into a wall nobody warns you about. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent decades studying human social groups, ancient and modern, tribes, villages, military units, friend networks. A number kept appearing, roughly 150. That's the rough limit on how many genuine, stable relationships a human brain can meaningfully track at once. Not acquaintances, not faces, real relationships built on shared history and actual trust. You now have thousands of people employed to protect you, millions who recognize your name, and somehow fewer real relationships than you had a year ago. Every person orbiting your new life exists inside a structure they didn't choose either. The security team follows protocol, not friendship. The staff run your household with precision, not intimacy. The distant acquaintances reaching out aren't lying exactly. They're just responding to something ancient in themselves too. an instinct that says proximity to resources equals opportunity. Nobody involved is a villain. The system itself just wasn't built for this. So who do you actually trust? Here's where the wealth research gets uncomfortable. Neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky spent years studying wild baboon troops, specifically how social hierarchy affects stress hormones. He found something almost nobody expects. It wasn't total resources predicting stress and health in these animals. It was relative rank, and specifically uncertainty about that rank. Baboons whose social position was unstable, unclear, constantly being tested by others showed the highest chronic stress of the entire troop. You now sit at the top of a hierarchy so extreme it barely resembles anything your instincts evolved to handle. Everyone below you has a reason to want proximity. Some want genuine connection. Some want access. Your brain, ancient and pattern hungry, cannot always tell the difference in real time, and neither, frankly, can you. The helicopter still feels incredible for the first few weeks. Then it becomes transportation. The forest around your house becomes scenery you walk past without really seeing. The yacht sits mostly unused, a beautiful, expensive fact rather than an experience. The staff become part of the architecture of your days rather than something remarkable. This is called hedonic adaptation, and it is relentless. Whatever becomes normal stops registering as extraordinary. No matter how extraordinary, it objectively remains. Economist Daniel Kahneman, working with Angus Deaton, studied the relationship between income and daily emotional well-being across hundreds of thousands of people. Their finding still holds at every scale they measured. Life satisfaction, the story you tell someone about your overall existence, keeps climbing with wealth. Daily emotional experience, how you actually feel while living an ordinary Tuesday, plateaus early and stays remarkably flat. You would rate your life as extraordinary. You might still feel strangely hollow doing something as small as eating breakfast alone in a dining room built for 40 people, your money quietly growing in the background, more this morning than it was last night, regardless of how that breakfast feels. There's a version of this that doesn't have to end in isolation, though. Psychologist Michael Norton ran studies on spending and happiness and found something consistent across income levels. People who spend resources on others or on shared experiences report meaningfully higher happiness than people who spend the same amount purely on themselves. Generosity activates reward circuitry more reliably and more durably than acquisition ever does. With $1 trillion growing faster than you could ever spend it, you could fund clean water systems for entire regions without denting your balance. You could quietly change the direction of someone's life with an amount so small to you it wouldn't even register as spending. That pathway to genuine reward stays open far longer than any yacht, private island, or hidden forest ever will. Not because it's noble, but because it's how the reward system was actually built to work. Picture the version of you 3 months in. The helicopter is just a schedule now. The estate is simply where you live. The bodyguard rotation has become background noise, footsteps you no longer notice. Your face is recognized everywhere you go, and somehow that recognition feels less like being known and more like being watched. Most of the people who wanted to meet you have blurred into a single category in your mind, impossible to sort by motive, and the moments that still spike something real, genuinely real, aren't the acquisitions at all. They're the rare conversation that feels unguarded, the one person who forgets, even briefly, what you're worth and just talks to you like a person. That's not a flaw in the money. That's your evolutionary wiring, still running the same ancient software, still built for tribes of roughly 150, still craving verified trust over unlimited access. No matter how large the number sitting quietly in your account grows while you sleep, you wake up and you're a trillionaire. The helicopter is waiting. The forest stretches out past the windows. Thousands of people are working right now to keep you safe, and somewhere out there, millions more know your name without knowing you at all. Your money made more money again overnight without you lifting a finger. And somewhere in that enormous, gated, fully staffed, endlessly recognized life, you're still looking for the exact same thing you were looking for before any of it existed.